Hey guys, today we're going to start reviewing for the map test. I'm going to pick some big standards that you're definitely going to see on the map test in significant ways, and I'm going to do 2 or 3 videos about them every week. So today is just about adding and subtracting. This actually should say expressions review because we're not actually doing equations right now. So we're talking about just adding and subtracting expressions. It really is just about combining like terms. And on that, so look for, when you're doing adding and subtracting expressions, be on the super lookout for when there is a minus sign directly outside of an open parentheses. That combination, minus only, not plus, minus, means do the opposite of everything in the parentheses. If this was a plus, you would just do exactly what is inside the parentheses. So if it was plus a minus, you would just subtract. But if it's minus a plus, you do the opposite. The opposite of adding is subtracting. You change subtracting to addition by adding the inverse. Inverse, that is, change the sign of each term that's being subtracted. Whatever is in the parentheses, you do the opposite of that. Everything that is in parentheses, you do the opposite. And once you've done that, then you combine like terms. Okay, so here is how you do it with addition. So notice on this one that we do not have that minus sign on the outside of the open parentheses. So for this one, this is just going to be 3x plus 6. And then when it's a plus sign on the outside of the parentheses, you can just drop this and do everything that's in the parentheses like normal. Minus 2x minus 5. So then we just combine like terms. So we can't combine 3x and 6 because there's no x after 6. If there's a variable next to the coefficient, you have to combine the terms that have the same variable. So in this one we have 3x and we have negative 2x. Positive 3x plus negative 2x gives us positive 1x, which means that we're multiplying 1 times whatever x ends up being as our variable. 1 times anything is just that thing. So this actually becomes just x. Positive 1x is the same thing as just x. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and change my pen color here. Blue. So I can distinguish between the terms. So after that, we have positive 6, negative 5. Positive 6 minus 5 gives us 1, positive 1. So we end up with x plus 1. So our expression becomes x plus 1. So that's how you do it with addition. And again, that is only when there is a plus sign on the outside of your open parentheses. Let's try it with subtraction. So now we have a minus sign on the outside of the parentheses, and this is when we need to start paying attention. Remember, minus signs mean that we do the opposite of whatever is in our parentheses. So this minus sign plus the open parentheses means you do the opposite of whatever's inside the parentheses. So let's rewrite this expression doing the opposite. So we have minus 5x, or negative 5x, plus 4. That doesn't matter for our opposite because it's not inside the parentheses. Now we get to the opposite. So this is a plus 2x. This is a hidden plus 2x. The opposite of a positive 2x is a minus 2x, a negative 2x. And then this is a minus 4. That becomes a plus 4. So because this was originally positive and we're doing the opposite, it becomes negative 2x, and that's a 4. And that becomes, instead of minus 4, plus 4. So our new expression is negative 5x plus 4 minus 2x plus 4. So let's combine these like terms. Again, I cannot combine my negative 5x and my positive 4 because those are not like terms. So I'm going to combine minus 5x, you can't see that, it's a terrible color to pick. So I'm going to combine my minus 5x and my minus 2x. So when I do negative 5 plus negative 2, so I have negative 5, I can do it on my number line. So I have negative 5, I'm adding negative 2 onto it, which means that I end up with negative 7. You can also think of it like this. I have 5 negatives, and I'm going to add 2 more negatives onto there. How many negatives am I left with? I'm left with negative 7. So this becomes negative 7, and I can't forget that variable, x, and then I'm going to combine my terms without a variable, which are positive 4 and positive 4. So here I have positive 4 plus 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. So my final term becomes negative 7x plus 8. And that's because I did everything that was in the opposite of these parentheses. I changed my positive 2x into a negative 2x, and I changed my minus 4 into a plus 4. And that, again, is only when you have the minus sign on the outside of the parentheses. That's when you do the opposite. So sometimes it helps to line them up vertically. It helps to be able to see the like terms. Now, before I do that, I have this minus and an open parentheses. So I'm going to take everything that's inside of this parentheses, and I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to do 5x minus 2, and then I originally would have a positive 3x here, because if there's no sign, it's automatically positive. So I'm going to do the opposite of that, minus 3x, and then this plus 4 becomes a minus 4. So I have a minus 2 and a minus 4. When I put those together, I get minus 6. Again, because I have 2 negatives, and I'm putting 4 more negatives on there. So I end up with 6 negatives. And then I have a positive 5x and a minus 3x. On this one, I would have, I'll change the color here. On this one, I would have positive 5. And then I would have negative 3. These guys cancel out. I'm left with 2 positives. And I got to keep that variable. So my expression here would become 2x minus 6. Okay, so we're going to do one practice together. You're going to do 2 on your own. We're going to do 1 together. You're going to do 2 on your own. And then we're going to do the test-taking tip of the day. So let's do it right here. First of all, I have the minus sign outside the parentheses, so everything inside the parentheses becomes the opposite, and I drop the minus sign. So let's rewrite this. Negative 6x plus 2. This was originally a positive 3 in here, so it becomes a negative 3x. This was originally a plus 4, so I do the opposite of adding, which is subtracting. That becomes minus 4. I'm going to line this up because I like doing it vertically. So I'm going to start with negative 6x plus 2. And underneath this, I'm going to do minus 3. Ooh. Minus 3x negative 4. All right. So on this one, I have a negative 6. And I'm adding on another negative 3, or minus 3. So I end up with 9 negatives. Negative 9x. Here I have a positive 2 and a negative 4. What you can do is you can subtract the absolute values and steal the sign from the one that's bigger. So if I look at these two numbers, 4 has the larger absolute value. So I'm going to steal the sign from my 4, which is a minus, and then I'm just going to subtract the absolute values. And 2 minus 4, or 4 minus 2, if you do the absolute value of that, is 2. So this becomes 9x minus 2. I'm also going to show you how to do this with pluses and minuses. So I started with 2 positives, and then I added 4 negatives. These cancel out, and I'm left with 2 negatives, which is what I end up with right here. So 9x minus 2 is what our first practice problem is. Go ahead and do practice 2 and 3 on your own. Pause the video. All right, let's do practice 4 together. I am not going to line this one up vertically because you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I'm going to do it all horizontally just so you guys get practice doing both. So let's rewrite it. Notice I have the minus and a parenthesis, so I do the opposite of everything in the parentheses. So I have 2x minus 8 because that's not in the parentheses. The opposite of negative 3x is positive 3x. The opposite of plus 1 is minus 1. Let's combine like terms. I have positive 2x and positive 3x. 2 plus 3 is 5x. If you don't know how I got this, I started with 2 positives, I added 3 more positives, and I get 5 positives. All right, so then I go to negative 8 and negative 1. When I combine those terms, so when I have negative 8 and negative 1, if I start with 8 negatives, and I add 1 more negative on there, I end up with 9 negatives. So my full expression, when I combine like terms, becomes 5x minus 9. You guys do pause the video and do practice 6 and 5 on your own. All right, and that takes care of our notes for the day. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with your test-taking tip of the day. Remember that these are just helpful hints that aren't necessarily math-related, that are going to help you pass the map test. Gotta plug my computer in. They're going to help you pass the map test when you do eventually take it in less than 2 weeks. So, my test-taking tip of the day. We've already talked about getting enough sleep. We've talked about reading the question before you read the rest of the problem so that you have an idea of where you're going for the question. My next test-taking tip of the day is going to be to make sure that you are eating a healthy, nutritious breakfast. You don't want to have a lot of sugar. You don't want to have a lot of processed food. So if your food looks like the animal or the plant that it came from, that means that it's not processed. So if you can look at a green bean and say this came from a bean, you know that that's not really highly processed. But if you look at a potato chip, you can't necessarily say like, oh, this looks like a potato. So that's a lot more processed. So make sure you're eating a healthy breakfast with not very processed food. You don't want to drink a lot of sugar. There's a lot of sugar in juice, so be careful. Drinking a lot of sugar and eating a lot of processed food are actually going to help your brain work kind of like slower. You're not going to remember as much. You're not going to be as like quick on the uptake. So especially the morning of the map test or the mornings of the map test, I guess, and then the weeks leading up to it, starting now, make sure you're eating healthy. Give your brain the nutrition and the energy that it deserves. And I will have another video for you guys later this week. All right, thanks guys.